Assalamualaikum everybody. Today we will learn about how to write a composition that holds the genre of suspense or thriller writing. Have you written one before? Or maybe you may have read or stumbled upon few writings, like in Fiction Shasha or in Twitter threads about it. Now, let's dive into this. So, the essay question wants us to write a story with a genre of suspense or thriller. Your essay should exceed 350 words. Phew, sounds a lot, but I promise writing this will be fun. First things first. So, we have read the question, right? So we have to know what the question wants. The question wants us to make a story, which obviously involves plot. The genre of the story should be suspense or thriller, and the story should exceed 350 words. Right. However, do you really understand what is suspense or thriller genre? This genre is a fictional type. It gives the reader a mood which it heightened the feelings of suspense, excitement, surprise, anticipation, and anxiety. It used plots. Writers develop the story, but not necessarily like the old traditional plot. Be creative for it. This genre sets several questions that the audience expects the answer and delays the answer while maintaining interest and keeping them guessing. And one of it are plot twists. This type of genre not just applicable to murders like in Sherlock Holmes, but also Stranger Things, where it's about monsters, right? And It by Stephen King, where the story is about a sinister entity that hunt down kids every 27 years, as well as whether or not the Avengers are able to save the planet from Thanos, or whether or not Aquaman able to be the king of the sea, and the list continues. There are few techniques that can be used to write suspense or thriller stories, which is number 1. Limiting point of view. Writers use this technique when they telling stories from the perspective of the character. The plot evolves only through the character's knowledge. Then, number 2, write settings or imagery, where settings can be parted in two main points, which were time and place. As for imagery, it can help by creating an environment of the story as it sets eerie, dark, and it gave roles as limiting and restricts characters. For examples are nighttime, fogs, old buildings, old castles, abandoned, villa, and the list goes on. Imagery are some sort of description writing, where writers use 5 senses in describing the story, which was number 1, sight, number 2, taste, number 3, touch, number 4, sound, and number 5, smell. These are used to give more detail to your writing. Use the vocabulary wisely for this part. For example, describing red roses as blood red. As for the third one, play with style and form. Build suspense by carefully paying attention by not just what happens, but how you convey and pace your storylines. Organizing your storyline is important, as creating discomfort to your audience are one of good point in writing this genre of story. Now, last but not least, you can also use dramatic irony. What is dramatic irony? It's when the story are told beforehand to the audience and watch the character during the spoiler that was given by the writer. The mystery here isn't about what will happen, but rather when and how the character will learn. For example, a story about Oedipus Rex. Oedipus Rex doesn't know that he killed his own father and married his own mother, but the audience know, and catching the character knows the truth as it provides the story with its agonizing climax. How these techniques affects your story? Well, it tackles the audience to be interested with your story, it makes the story unique, and eventually molding your writing style, and last but not least, avoiding cliches. Then, you can use this method too. One husband, five wives. You have no idea how to generate your writing or your plot? Use this method, which is how, why, who, what, when, and where. Once you have figured it out, organize them to make the storyline interesting. Now, how to organize? You have to set your priorities. These are the examples on elaborations that was done, and you as a writer should determine yourself, your priority, as this is your own creation, your own story. For number 1, introduction. You can use catchy phrases or start with interesting introduction with dialogue or an incident. You can refer to technique on writing this genre of story. Then use what. Determine what story you want to make. Mystery of disappearance, serial killer, extraterrestrial beings, or dark secrets. Then settings and imagery. Time settings and place settings, like in Victorian era, in the 90s, haunted villa, abandoned castles. For imagery, you can use descriptions like bloody red or ghostly quiet, and etc. Then who. Determine the background of your character, their age groups, something that may affect the stories like their interest, hobby, family ties, and the list continues. Then, why? Plan reasons behind climax that you are about to write, so you will be on track while being immersed in your writing. And last but not least, how? Find a solution or reasons to your main problems or peak of the story or climax part of the story to provide sense of closure to audience, which can also be used as conclusion to your own writing. Then, as a recap, techniques that we have mentioned earlier are number 1, limiting point of view, number 2, set the right settings, then use imagery, as well as play with styles and form, then dramatic irony, and lastly, 1H and 5W method. You can also use Google or internet or books as your own additional source to help with your writing. So, this quote that might be useful for you to start your writing in your essay, it says, "The oldest and strongest kind of fear is the fear of the unknown" by H.P. Lovecraft, a classic horror writer. Last but not least, be bold and use your imagination. Good luck!